What's up, everybody? We are back with episode number 14, I believe. We are joined by a very special guest today, Georgia Miller with Fill me in here, Georgia.
Rooted sports psychology coaching.
There we go. That is awesome. Georgia
Yeah.
is a mental performance coach as well, kind of similar to what I do. She is also actually my CMPC mentor. She is kind of helping me through the whole process of it also. I thought it'd be great to get Georgia on here and just kind of talk about things, sports, mental performance stuff, and kind of get a different perspective than two dudes just shooting the stuff about it.
Get some
So
female perspective in here.
that's
That's
exactly right.
right.
Someone with a little bit more experience maybe than I have, someone with a little bit more education, just somebody with a little bit more insight. So, Georgia, talk to us, give us a quick introduction to yourself, where you live, where you came from, your educational background, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I got my master's from Springfield College up near Boston. So I have survived the torturous winters, but now I live in Miami, Florida, which is very nice. I have my own private practice. It's called Rooted Sports Psychology Coaching, and the majority of what I do is work one-on-one with athletes. And then I also do team seminars as well. And I work with coaches on implementing sports psych techniques into their culture. And then I also work with a lot of sport parents on not putting so much pressure on their athletes and just how to
Mm.
help their athletes grow on and off the field. So majority of my day is just meeting one-on-one with people, and that's virtual. And I also have a few in-person athletes down here in Miami as well.
That's awesome. I love that you do the parent side of things too. Like Andrew and I talk a lot about the parental side of things and how they can make or break athletes sometimes. And if they know the things to support those athletes and get them, push them towards the successful side of things mentally, then I think that, helps them out a lot. What originally pulled you towards the whole mental performance coaching type life?
Yeah, so I played volleyball in college, and I always thought I would be a volleyball coach. So I know you all coach a lot of tennis, so that was kind of my path. I was like, I would definitely want to be a coach. But then I fell in love with the mental aspect of it, and I wanted to work with more sports than just volleyball. And in order to do what you and I do, then we need a master's. So
Yep.
I pursued grad school right after college. But when I really first heard of sports psychology, I think I was in high school and I was taking just a random psych class, and my teacher had mentioned sports psychology, and I was like, what is that? I was like, that sounds so interesting. So I continued to just really think about it in college, and then I was dead set on it. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. So I went and got my master's and then went immediately into private practice after.
Nice. Love
Yeah.
that.
Very cool.
Go for it, Andrew.
Yeah, this is Austin's kind of trying to be on this road and on this track, but I have no idea what any of it involves. So, like, what does the pathway to becoming one of a CMPC? What is that like? What does that involve, and what does it look like?
Yeah. Well, for all the listeners, it stands for Certified Mental Performance Consultant. And you have to have a master's degree in order to even take the CMPC exam. And after that master's degree, you need 400 hours. And those 400 hours are split up into different categories, but most of them are working directly one-on-one with athletes or with teams. You need mentorship hours as well. So it can be pretty intense to get all of your hours. And then once you get all that, you have a lot of experience by the end of it, then you can take the CMPC exam. And then when you take that exam, you're free to kind of put that title at the end of your name, and then you're just more credible in the sports psychology field. So for athletes who are looking for a mental performance coach, a great way to find us is on the ASP website, AASP, Association of Applied Sports Psychology, and you can look at all the CMPCs that are listed in your area, which is pretty cool.
I gotcha.
That,
So, like,
that's crazy.
Austin, are your consultations that you do counting towards your hours right now, or do you have to have the master's first?
That's a great question. The things that I'm doing now count to a certain extent to my hours. So like they have to be split up a certain excuse me, a certain way. Like I can't do all 400 hours with consultations and sessions with the athletes. They
Gotcha.
have to
Right.
be like some of them, it counts for some of the 400 hours essentially without getting into too much specifics of it all, but Georgia, I didn't know that you could go to the website and look up CMPCs in your area. Like, does that mean that there's just not a lot of them and that it's kind of like a smaller number, or is there like a lot of CMPCs out there?
There's not a ton. It's definitely exploded over the last few years, so there's more and more, but they come out every, I don't know, couple months, they send out an email with, like, a list of new CMPCs who have passed the exam, which is
Nice.
which is pretty cool. Yeah, and there's probably, like, 50 people on it every time they do that. So as, like, more and more students are graduating from these master's programs and then are taking the exam, there's quite a few, but there's definitely not, like, a ton in every single area, especially if you live in probably a smaller city. I
Yep,
mean, you're lucky if you have, like, 1 or 2 there probably.
for sure. I
Yeah.
need to get on there and see how many like the Kansas City area has
Mm.
just to see like not competition by any means, certainly not competition, but just the people who think like are like-minded like me.
Yes, yes, yeah. Great way to,
Georgia,
like, connect and meet people too.
yes, yes, maybe shoot some messages out on
Mhm,
LinkedIn or something. That's great.
mhm.
Um, what types of athletes do you find yourself working with the most? I know in you and I's conversations, you've mentioned, you've had some professional athletes and you've had some younger athletes. Is there like, at w- I guess my question is, at what age do people start really thinking and getting involved with the mental performance side of
Yeah, so I think it's sad, but it's getting younger and younger. So I have a lot of parents calling me about their 8-year-old and 9-year-old and 10-year-old. And I'm like, your kid doesn't even know what sports psychology is. They can't even say it. So I don't think it's the best time to start it. And then if that's the case, right, I usually end up working with the parents because
Mm,
it's a waste
Yeah.
of money. I'm very honest with parents. I'm like, I don't want you to spend all this money when your kid isn't going to retain any of it.
yep.
Yeah.
So then I end up working with the parents for the really young athletes. But sweet spot for me are ages like 14 through 22, high schoolers, especially high schoolers in the recruiting process, and then collegiate athletes. And then some younger professionals, I would say. And then every once in a while, you'll get like the older scratch golfers who just, want to improve their game. And sometimes I'll take them on. They can be really fun to work with. But yeah, I would say like 14 through 22 is the sweet spot in all sports, really. I would say the main ones, though, especially living in South Florida, golf, tennis, soccer. I have a lot of gymnastics, lots of baseball as well, and
Mm.
softball. But then, you get like your fun random sports too. Like I just started with someone who does rodeo in
Oh,
Texas and
Oh, cool.
pickleball. Yeah. So you like learn all these like random cool sports. I've worked with a bagpipe player before. So some musician.
Yes.
that
I
Yeah.
is
didn't even know that people still
incredible.
did that.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like it's cool. You get like all these like random people who just want to like be better at their craft and perform better. So sometimes I'll be like literally like doing research on I just started with the sailor too. Like how to sail. Like I'm like I have no idea what the sport even consists of. So I've been learning so much too every time I start a new sport. You really appreciate it.
I think that's like a really important thing to note is that mental performance can be applied to literally anything, right? Like I never would have thought that a bagpipe player needed mental performance coaching to perform, but like they do. Everybody kind of needs it for every facet of their life and that's just so cool. I would love to pick a bagpipe player's brain just about like how do you do this? I
Right?
have no idea. I'm
Right?
so
I mean,
confused. Just fill
they
me
get
in.
the no, and then they're in their head, and they've completely lost track of what they gotta do, so it's really intense for musicians, then they get nervous before they perform,
Yep.
so it
Yep.
And
makes
they're probably big performances too. I mean, when do you see a bagpipe player? Probably at like big things with a lot of people.
yeah,
I never just
exactly.
see him walking down the street playing a bagpipe. I've never seen that before.
Right, it's never, like, in a small venue by any
Yeah, right.
So, Georgia, it sounds like you work with lots of different kinds of performers and a whole bunch of different people. Is there something that kind of stands out as something that people misunderstand about sports psychology or performance psychology? Do you see any like misconceptions or things like that?
Yes, especially with my teenage boys who parents, kind of force them into it a little bit. I think a lot of people think it's really clinical and there's a lot of counseling involved, and they think that something has to be majorly wrong with them in order to reach out to a mental performance coach or a sports psychologist, sports psych coach. That's the biggest misconception. And that's why I usually offer like free 20-minute consults so the athletes can meet me and see what it's like before they fully commit to it. Not to pick on all the teenage boys, but typically they're like a little more stubborn and strong, you know? And when mom brings it up to them, they're like, well, you
Yep.
think something's wrong with me? Um, Usually once they meet me and they're like, "She's cool, she can talk sports, it's not all about feelings." They're like, "Okay, like, I can get on this," you know? So as I would say that's the biggest misconception, and it's sad because I think that so many more athletes would really benefit from it. I mean, we're learning mental skills, right, to help you perform better, and who doesn't wanna get better at their sport? And
Right.
so many of the professionals have someone like Austin and I in their corner nowadays.
Yeah.
So I think having that helps too, is like seeing their role models use sports psychologists and NPCs that can really help them too.
I think what you said about having somebody like us in their corner, I've found in my, short amount of time of doing this that sometimes, not all the times obviously, but sometimes they just need a little bit more support. They need somebody who's going to encourage them when they lose, or encourage them, when they're fighting through an injury or something like that. And it's not so much the exact specific things we say, it's the support that we show, if that makes sense. Not that the important details are in one ear and out the other, but they just really like having somebody there to encourage them no matter what, and say, "Hey, you're doing well. Look at the progress you made." Stuff like that. I think that's an important thing to note as well in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had just one of my basketball players, he's a junior and he was competing in his state championships this last weekend, which is really cool. But it's really cool to see what clicks and works for all of your athletes. Like some athletes who have an off day, like you got to break it down. We're analyzing it. We're seeing where exactly went wrong. What can we learn from it? And then for my basketball player who texted me, who's over the weekend, he's like, I'm nervous. Like I had an off practice night before. I'm like, no, you're good, dude. And he was like, yeah, you're right. I am good. They're like, that was all I did, right? Sometimes it's literally just like that. Awesome. What you said is just more of like the support than anything
Yeah.
else.
They need somebody to talk to and somebody to listen to them. And then, it's kind of like a venting session with your best friend where it's like you have all these things going on in your life. And as soon as you talk about them and get them out, you're like, wow, yeah, I feel better about this situation. And that's really all I needed. Not that we're
Yeah.
professional vent listeners or anything like that, but we do a little bit more than that.
And you and I
But
have that all the time, like at practice. Like I
yeah,
start talking and I'm just talking to myself, but you're standing there listening to me, and it's like I'm talking to you, but I just have to talk myself through something, and then, oh yeah, I found the solution to this problem all by myself. Thanks for listening, Austin.
yeah, you do like to talk to yourself a lot of like just, because we have a lot of tough situations, especially like this year where we have lineups that we don't know what it's going to look like and we have to work through them. And so there'll be times where Andrew will just talk to himself and I'll be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Or have you ever thought about it this way? Or like, maybe we could do this. And then just some way, somehow the problem gets fixed.
There'll be times where I like type out a huge long text message, and then like by the end of the message, I come to the answer myself. It's like, oh yeah, okay, never mind, I got it.
I got it.
Delete. Georgia, I'm curious what the difference to me, I know the answer to this question. I'm curious what you'll have to say. What's the difference between mental health and mental performance? Like, how are they similar? How are they different? How can they tie together?
Yeah. Well, I think if you're working on your mental performance, you are working on your mental health. Mental health though is a little more it's a little more clinical, little more focused on the emotional aspects and at like every aspect of your life, those daily life stressors, more so towards geared towards the counseling side. I like to explain it like this for maybe athletes who are like questioning, do I need performance or do I need more mental health? The counseling route more so targets past experiences, whereas the mental performance, the coaching is more geared on where are we going? Where are we headed? It's more future focused and it's a little more direct.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of the athletes really resonate with the sports psychology route a little better than the counseling route. I support counseling, not saying I don't, but because they have actionable strategies to actually apply that week, right? And
Yep.
athletes love short things. They want to get better right away. They want you to tell them the answer and they're used to coaching, right? versus sometimes the counseling, it's more like, oh, let me kind of come to the answer myself, which, yes, is in our work, but sometimes athletes don't know what they don't know, right? And you kind of need to tell them. So I like to explain it like that. Like mental health is more emotional, daily life stressors, more so leaning towards counseling side. Mental performance, we're learning applied mental skills that will help you perform better in sport, but also like daily life. Like for my athletes, we're talking about presenting and how can you use this also in your social life too. So that's why athletes like the sports psych so much is because it's applied to their sport, but then they find it easier to apply to other areas of their life too. So I know that kind of answered like more than your question, but that's what I like to explain to athletes when they're like a little confused about.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that. When I saw this question, I was like, I kind of know what it means to me, but I don't know how to put that into words. I think you just answered that question perfectly. That's
Thank you.
I get that a lot, honestly, from like, I had a kid, one of my clients who texted me one day and he said, "So are you like a sports therapist or are you like just a regular therapist?" I was like, "Whoa, buddy, listen, here's the thing. I'm not a therapist at
Not
all."
either.
That, like, to me in my head, that like therapy and like you said, counseling, all that stuff is more like mental health. Like Andrew said, I think you did a great job of explaining that. I think that's really good.
And then
yeah,
something though that your listeners might benefit from hearing too is like at first, right? You had put my title as a sports psychologist. And I'll get a lot of calls and like, "Oh, are you the sports psychologist?" And I have to explain the difference between a sports psychologist and someone like us, Austin, so like mental performance coach, sports psychology coach, whatever you want to call us, is a sports psychologist. Let's say if an athlete comes to them and they have a depression or an anxiety disorder, the sports psychologist can continue working with them. They have had that training. Whereas, let's say if an athlete comes to me and I spot the depressive symptoms, I have to refer them out. I cannot continue working with them because I won't be able to give them the care that they need. So, a person in my position, we're trained to spot the signs of clinical disorders. We are not trained to treat them, though. A sports psychologist who has their psychologist license, PhD, they are trained to treat them.
Yes, absolutely.
that's a really
That
good
was my
distinction to make.
huge question at the beginning of all this. Like, this whole process when I first got into it was like, because I know there's sports psychology, but I also know that that's a long journey and you have to do all these different things. But then I also see these mental performance coaches and like, they're obviously not the same. So I think parents and athletes hearing the difference between the two
Mhm,
is very important.
It's a good
So
distinction to make between the sports psychology and the like mental performance coaching. Like
mhm,
I had never thought about that. It makes perfect sense. Like I, as a teacher, know the signs of things to look for, but don't know what to do when I see them besides say, hey, you need to go see this person or
right.
email somebody and say you need to talk to the student. Like it totally connects and makes perfect sense. You mentioned it a little bit about how you get parents that are requesting you to work with some younger kids, and some kids that maybe can't even say the word sports psychology, but, like, what do you think is the right age, a good age for an athlete to start working on at least working on mental performance and developing some of those mental skills?
Yeah, I don't know what the research says, so this is more my personal opinion. I should probably know what the research says, but I would say around 13. But even then, right, like some 13-year-olds are very immature. So
Yeah.
it depends a lot on just the maturity level and their ability to also explain what's going on in their heads. No, I have taken on some 10-year-olds because they were able to tell me exactly what they're thinking, what they're feeling. But if an athlete can't describe what's going on in their heads after they make a mistake, we aren't going to be able to get very far. Right?
Yep.
So I think like 13 is usually when I notice a good age because they're able to describe those things and take things in and apply it. But really that's why I like to do the consults, Andrew, because you can tell a lot if they're ready for it or not. But if I had to
Yeah.
give an age, I'd say around 13.
Yeah. I
I
that's
think
what
I'd
I've
agree with
kinda
that too.
noticed also. You mentioned the maturity level, like, when we have the conversations with my tennis team on a rain out day or whatever, and I, give them something to read, something short, and then we start talking and asking questions and having discussions, like, I really hear the good things from the kids who I know are more emotionally mature and more mentally mature, and I'm hoping that
Mm.
that just kinda brings up the younger, less experienced, less mature kids is like, helps to kind of develop that, and but, like, that's really where that conversation and the good talking points are coming from is the kids who I have known just by interacting with them, that they have that sense of emotional maturity and can describe exactly what you're talking about.
Right, and you're doing such a great thing of kind of exposing the younger ones to it so they can start getting an idea of like, "Oh, this is like a good way to think about it or perspective," right? And that's why it's helpful to work with the parents because I can tell the parents like, "Hey, these are good questions to start asking them,"
Yeah,
like, start slowly introducing it, right?
yeah,
It's not like a full immersion into the world of sports psychology, mental performance. It's kind of like, okay, I want you to start thinking about how you're feeling after this loss or how you're feeling leading up to this game. And
Mhm.
then, like you said, get them introduced to it. Georgia, in terms of coaching and like even parents in most situations, what can a good coach or parent do to support an athlete's mindset to get them, like we just kind of talked about with the questions for the parents, what else can they do to help support an athlete's mindset?
Yeah, I would say for coaches, which I'd be curious to hear your all's opinion on this too. I think for coaches, the one-on-one meetings and just the team debriefs are so important. An athlete loves some one-on-one time, just checking in with them, like, hey, how's it going? What are your goals? Like that says so much to an athlete, like, oh, coach cares about me, right?
Mhm.
And then just the team debriefs of like, "Hey, how did this go?" Or give them a reading and start breaking it down. I think like giving them very specific focuses for drills, kind of breaking down the purpose of it. I know today's generation, they really need to know the why. Maybe they don't need to, but they like to. They like to know the why. So
Yes.
helping them explain why are we doing sprints at the end of practice? Oh, because when you are in a third set tie break and you're going to be more conditioned than your opponent. It's like, oh, okay, got it. That's more motivating me for me to do these sprints, right? Versus just mindlessly doing them.
yeah.
So I would say like breaking down the purpose, having those one-on-one check-ins, big overall team debrief. What's our goal going in? What are our good takeaways? Even starting to implement some visualization in there for the athlete. So give them some time, give them like read them a little script at the beginning of practice. Like, okay, I want you to start visualizing this and setting like 2 or 3 minutes aside for all of these things, right? It doesn't have to be this big, oh, we got to take them inside and practice an hour early to do this. Like, no,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, practice time is your practice time. You need that. But those short minutes, the 3 minute combos, the 3 minute breathing exercises and visualizations, those add up a lot. And then for parents, it's more about like what not to do, I feel like
Yeah.
Yes.
don't don't compare your kid to other kids. Don't point out all the mistakes after they, like, immediately come off the court, right? Just, like, ask the open-ended questions. They should know what to expect from you after every game, a hug and a good job and a where you wanna go.
Yep. Love that.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot, Andrew and I do, about parents, and like not in a bad way by any means, but being a high school coach, you're directly involved with the parents, and I think all those things that you noted about what good coaches can do to help push an athlete's mindset. I think Andrew does a great job of all those things. Like he kind of checks all the boxes on there. And even when it comes to parents, sure, Andrew might not be a mental performance coach or anything like that, but like at the preseason parent meeting, throughout the course of the season, that communication with the parents, kind of the setting the expectation. I think you even put on your little flyer, Andrew, a YouTube link that's like directed how to watch your kids play tennis as a
Yep.
parent, as an adult.
So good, Andrew. I
I
love
don't I don't know if anybody
Thanks.
actually watches them. It's really hard to you can't put a actual video on a piece of paper, obviously, but, I would just having that there as a resource, I think, is something that probably a lot of coaches don't do, they don't think about, they don't care about. So, yeah, I think I just wanna give you claps, Andrew, because I think you do a great job of all those things.
Hey, thanks, man. I in my head as she was talking about those things, I was like, "Hey, we do some of that. Hey, hey, I do that. We do that. Cool. Look at me. Look at that."
something.
Yes.
Oh,
You're doing
yeah.
good. You're doing good. My next question is about habits that coaches do. So, I mean, Andrew and I were kind of raised in I'm not going to say the olden days, but kind of the different thinking kind of ways where the coaches were a little bit more tougher. It wasn't so much mentally encouraging, but in today's day and age what are some habits that coaches might have that unintentionally hurt their athletes mentally? They might not be, hopefully, they're not doing it intentionally, but some of the things they say and do hurts the athletes. What are some things?
Yeah. And I really don't like when athletes get all in their head and upset at coaches who yell. That's not a bad thing,
Yeah,
right? Like, you see some of the best coaches, Michigan State fan, Rich Madness is happening, right? Like,
There you
you see
go.
Tom Izzo just rip a kid,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Tom
But
Izzo's famous
you
for it. He just lays into
yeah,
him.
yes, but if you ask any of his athletes, any of his players, they love him because he
Yeah.
also makes sure they understand that he cares for them and what he's doing is in their best interest, right? There's a good balance there. He makes it very clear, like, I'm holding you accountable and this is
hmm
what's best for like the team, right? So he's into like developing young men, not just like good basketball players, which totally
Yeah.
respect. So it's not necessarily like the yelling that's a bad thing. I would say, like, if you're a little more old school, then explain that as a coach. Like, hey, I'm yelling because I'm very invested and I want to grab your attention. It's not to make you scared and avoid making mistakes. I'm doing this because I care. A big thing, though, that I see coaches make mistakes on is ripping kids out like immediately after mistakes. I
Mhm.
know, like, that's a little different in the sport of tennis, right? Because they have like their whole match. You can't just
Right.
like rip them out.
Yeah.
But, like,
Yeah.
more of, like, the team sports, when someone makes a mistake and then coach immediately pulls them, what it does is now in their mind, "Oh, I can't make mistakes," so they go into the game thinking, "Don't make mistakes." And then teammates are seeing it and going, "Oh, well, now I can't really make a
Yep.
mistake," right?
Yeah.
I posted a video on my TikTok, and a guy commented and said his daughter's lacrosse team, I think it's a 15, their coach has a rule that any of the bench players who get put in, they're allowed 2 mistakes and then they get pulled. I'm like, that is the worst thing
Wow.
you could possibly ever do as a coach, right? Because now they're
That's
going in
crazy.
thinking, "Okay, I got my 2
Yep. I
mistakes,
got
don't make 2
two of them.
mistakes."
Yeah.
I'm like, "So stupid, just use common sense." So I'd say that's, like, probably one of the biggest things.
Wow.
Oh my I say this a lot with my athletes who are in high school who don't necessarily, I don't know how to word this. They don't have the best coaches. And some of them are high enough level that they're going to go on to college and play whatever sport it is. But a lot of times in high school, you don't get coaches that are invested as much as they would be in college, right? Like sometimes high schools just need somebody to fill a position. And so sometimes these coaches don't know the right way to do things. And maybe they played soccer when they were a kid or they played basketball when they were a kid and they were coached that way. And so they think that that's the way they should coach now. And so I talked to some of my clients about, you can't really control what the coach does. Sometimes you can't control the rules that they have, the rules they enforce, whatever it may be. And so even if there is a two mistake rule that's kind of out of your control, your performance is what is in your control. You asked earlier the about our perspective on like what good coaches can do to support an athlete's mindset. You mentioned Tom Izzo, and I think my answer to that question is have a good relationship with your kids.
Yeah.
I like that's one thing I've always prided myself on is having a good relationship with the kids because they're not going to come to me with concerns or issues if they don't trust me. And they're not going to trust me if we don't have a relationship. And so that's looks so many different ways, but saying hi to them if I see them in the hallways or at school or out in public or whatever, just making sure that they know that I care about them and that I care about their success. So I don't know. You got an answer to that question, Andrew?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a huge thing. And it's a big part of being an effective teacher in the classroom too, is being able to connect and have a good relationship with your students and with your players. If they know that you care about them and their success, they will work harder for you, like no matter what the task is. And I mean, you and I, Austin, have had this with coaches in our athletic background. Like, if I
Yeah.
don't respect a coach because I don't think a coach cares about me, I'm not going to work as hard for that coach. It's just like, no matter how I might work hard for myself, but I'm not going to work hard for the coach. Like, if you want your players to
A
work
couple
hard
names
for
come to
you,
mind there.
yeah, I've got a few in my head as well. But like, it's so that the fact that your kids know you care about them is a huge thing. Georgia, my next question for you is it goes along with this whole idea about talking about how the coaches coach. And as a head coach, I'm kind of curious as your input on this as well. What do you feel, in your opinion, should coaches focus on the most if they want their team and their players to be mentally tough, mentally resilient?
I would say the responses to mistakes, responses to adversities, that's a huge one because everybody can relate to mistakes. Those are inevitable. Like we know that's going to happen, right? So, how are you responding when a setback happens? How are you responding when in a soccer game a goal gets scored on you in the first minute? Right? Like, how are you responding to that? How are you responding when you just turn the ball over and you want to just like throw your hands up in the air and roll your eyes, but like, are you working your tail back on the court and getting it right back and being aggressive? Right. So, a coach who can really emphasize the responses to mistakes, the responses to adversities, that is a coach that I would love to play for. It's very process focused, it's more focused on the controllables, effort, attitude. And it might be hard at first, right? But like in the long run, especially towards the end of the season, when you have like a process down for how to handle mistakes and losses, then that's going to
Hmm.
just benefit your team so much more. Especially in sport like tennis, right? Where it's like win a point, lose a point, win a point, lose a point.
Yeah,
It's so back and forth. So how you handle that failure is going to be a very key part of the game.
I love that. I completely agree, and I think that you're saying these things, and then in my head, I'm checking things off. Like, okay, we talk about this. This is good. We're doing the right thing.
I would love to play for you, Andrew.
Good.
She's gonna say something that you don't do, and you're gonna be like, "Oh
Ah,
god, I need to oh man,
and then
it's
we'll
just the
start doing it.
worst." And then we'll start doing it. Yes, exactly. Georgia does have some really good advice and some really good, tips and tricks here. Where do you think I learned all my stuff from, Andrew?
Right, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. All the books I read? Definitely not. No, definitely not. Georgia, I think one of the biggest skills that an athlete can have is confidence. And I actually saw a video the other day that it was from somebody I follow on TikTok. She said she doesn't teach confidence. She doesn't talk about confidence, and she listed a bunch of reasons why. And I'm not sure I agree with it because I think it's important. But what is the best way to build confidence for young athletes, kind of the in that age range that you work with?
Right. Well, first, I want to highlight something really important that you said, Austin, like a skill, right? Confidence can be developed. And it's not necessarily like, yeah, sometimes I'll have a whole session on confidence with an athlete, but every single session that we're having is building confidence.
Yep.
If you know how to control your focus, if you are very well aware of what mainly distracts you, that's going to make you feel more confident, right? If self-talk, if you're talking to yourself correctly, not necessarily positively, but just productively,
Mhm.
that's going to make you feel more confident, right? If you know how to put your focus on and play through pressure situations, that's going to make you feel more confident. So I would say for like a younger athlete, right? It's helping them find perspective and reframe certain situations. Like if I don't know, like maybe coach switched up their position, right? It's, I don't want to be in this position. I hate this, but okay, coach sees my potential in this area. How can I show up and give my best effort and make the most of this new opportunity? That perspective right there just completely flips the switch, right?
Yep.
So I would say like really working on finding perspective, and parents can do that too, right? Instead of sitting and complaining with their child, they can offer them new perspectives, new ways of looking at situations. And then, I think self-talk is a big one. That inner dialogue, that's a great one to start with young athletes too, right? Is how are you talking to yourself? And I'm never sitting here telling an athlete, hey, let's be positive all the time. It's okay, I got this, because that's not going to relate to everybody, nor that is the most realistic. If I'm focused on, all right, like just stay aggressive and go in and get this ball back or focus on winning this next point, like that's productive, right? That keeps you focused. But saying I suck and I don't want to make a mistake, like that's not going to get the job done, and that's not making you feel more confident, right? So I would say in finding perspective and talking to yourself, those are two things that need to be worked on a lot. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do.
For sure. I think that's the toughest thing sometimes is the self-talk. Andrew and I have talked about this before of when we were growing up, when we weren't taught these types of skills, our self-talk probably wasn't the best, especially like in tennis when we're making mistakes and, tennis players aren't necessarily the strongest players mentally sometimes, but, having that skill and knowing that, that self-talk is so important, I think especially for tennis players, probably for every other sport is huge and is a great way to build confidence.
Yeah. So, like, why do you feel you've worked with more athletes than me? I just have the experience of our tennis team, and Austin has the experience of a few other sports and things. But why do you feel like athletes are focused so much on the short term and like the wins and the losses as opposed to like long-term goals and long-term growth over a period of months or maybe even years.
No. Well, in today's day and age, we hate waiting, right? We
Yes.
hate being patient. I think a lot of that has to do with our technology and our phones. If we're bored, well, first of all, we're never really bored, right? As soon as like we have
Yeah.
a second, immediately grab our phones and we start scrolling, right? So we
Yeah.
like that immediate gratification. We hate waiting. We want to see immediate results. We want that good feeling. But a lot goes to that phrase like good things come to those who wait. I think like a lot of us really need to work on that growth mindset and see like those small wins along the way and that the setback is just temporary. It's not going to be permanent.
Right.
So I think just because we hate waiting, right? We hate being patient. We don't know how to do it anymore. I think that's a big thing. And then, especially just with the social media, your stats, your games are like
Yep.
immediately highlighted and
Mhm.
blown up, right? I think all, especially young athletes, we all want that, right? So it's hard to see like, oh, this isn't necessarily my time, but my time is coming. It's really hard to like wait and trust that process. But if they can kind of learn from those setbacks and those losses and see how it's impacting them long term, I think that's a lot of what Austin and I are helping them try to do. It's going to make it such a more enjoyable process for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. I think that's that instant gratification type of mindset. I think that is what we got to get the kids away from, but it's hard.
Oh yeah,
So
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 hard.
hard sometimes.
So hard.
Especially when for like, in my opinion, when they're not continuing at the next level, college, whatever it may be, like, I feel like they want that instant gratification even more because they know that that next level, that next step isn't there, and so they wanna see that success, like, "Oh, I'm a, number 6 on my varsity high school tennis team, and I'm not gonna play in college. I wanna be successful now. I wanna make it to state now. I wanna do these things now," and that's just kind of hard to not deal with, but work through with those athletes, I think. Yeah, Andrew, yeah,
Yep.
nodding your head. Okay.
Agreed.
Um, we're
Nothing extra
gonna
to add there.
let's get okay, thank you. We're gonna get into the world famous cat lightning round. I'm not gonna make the cat noises here by any means because that's a little unprofessional. But in this cat lightning round, what we're gonna do, Georgia, is we have a list of questions. Andrew and I are gonna bounce back and forth, alternating questions. We want you to give the first answer that comes to your mind. Hopefully these are clear enough. Hopefully they don't need clarification. But if they do, you can always ask. Just the first thing that comes to your head, quick answer, and then we'll move on to the next one. So if you're ready, we can get started.
I'm ready. Hit me.
All right, Andrew, I'm going to start with the first one. You take the second one. What
Got it.
is one mental skill that every single athlete should train?
Focus.
What's more important, confidence or preparation?
Ooh, preparation builds confidence. So preparation.
Good
Great
answer.
answer. What is one thing that most athletes overthink?
A bad practice.
What's one thing mentally that athletes should stop doing?
Doom scrolling in the mornings on their phone.
Such a good answer. Okay. What is the best reset method after a mistake?
Some sort of a routine. So like pulling up your sock, tighten your ponytail, walking to the back line, something like physical to do.
What's one piece of short advice for young competitors?
Compete, don't compare.
Ooh,
Look at that.
wow. I've never heard that before. That is we're gonna end on that one because that was such a great answer. That was so good. That was great. That was awesome. Georgia, I know we're running out of time a little bit. I don't want to keep you too long. Is there any questions that you have for Andrew and I? Anything at all?
What's your all's favorite thing about coaching?
Go ahead, Andrew. You got it.
Yeah, we talked about it already. It's the relationship with the kids. Like,
Mm,
I could talk X's and O's and mental stuff with tennis and strategies and stuff like that all day, but it's the getting to know the kids and being a part of their journey, not just athletically, but like their overall path. And that's my favorite part.
I think I'm gonna give the same answer. Like the getting invited to grad parties or whenever we have a tennis tournament in the town they go to college at or whatever, they stop by to say hi or whatever it may be. Like there's just something about not just making good tennis players, but making good people. And so
Yeah.
seeing the things that these kids do after their high school tennis journey, whether that's going on to coach a tennis program themselves, or maybe they get a good job and they start a family and you see them at the grocery store and you have a little conversation with them. I've seen a lot of coaches that I've had that I just don't have that relationship with. I don't talk to them when I see them out in public or anything like that. Not that they were necessarily bad coaches, there just wasn't a relationship there. So I think having that relationship with the kids is huge. I love that part.
You guys are good coaches.
Thank
I would
you.
Thanks,
want
Georgia.
to.
Appreciate that. We're gonna wrap it up here. Georgia, what is one final message you have to any athletes that are listening to this? One thing from a mental performance coach that you just want people to hear.
You start small. You don't need to go out and seek one-on-one sports psych work. Like, start by reading a book, start by listening to podcasts. Start like having one little win a day, like make your bed in the mornings. One
Yeah,
thing successful checked off list motivates you to do another thing. So start small. Don't feel like you have to jump in and do like deep, intense one-on-one work. Start small. Like, listen to this podcast, and there's so many other ones out there that
you actually have one, don't you? Or
I
you do
do.
a lot of TikTok videos and podcasts and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, if you're gonna be scrolling, like, try to educate yourself a little bit. So yeah, look up Rooted
Yeah, make it
Sports Psych
productive.
and right, make it productive a little bit. Watch like good clips of your sport. Make the most out of it.
for sure. Georgia, where can people find information on your private practice, everything you do, social media? Where can they find you at?
Yeah, the best bet would be to check out my website. It's www.rootedsportspsychcoach.com. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. If you look up just Rooted Sports Psychology Coaching and Rooted Sports Psych Coach, you'll be able to find me.
For sure. Really good content too. I'm not biased by any means. I like seeing all
Same.
my For You page on my business pages, like sports psychology, mental performance stuff. And Georgia's always on there. Real quick clips, just real good pointers. So check her out, give her a follow. Georgia, this has been great. I love the insight on everything. And I think Andrew does too. I appreciate you coming on here and giving us some time. And good luck with everything. Good luck with your clients and everything like that. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you guys for
Yeah,
having me
it's
on.
awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We enjoyed it. It was good.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll see you later. Thank you guys for uh, checking in on Set Point Sessions. We will see you on the next session.